Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show, and mine too, actually, where we tackle the issues. We talk about the things that improve the customer experience at your store. I am fortunate to have a great network of friends and connections that come on weekly and share with us what they do or what they've done to help you. Because let's face it, if they have a good experience, they'll come back for everything they need and when they need it. And today we're going to tackle a really great subject, untapped gold, if you will, because there's a huge, huge market. I don't know about you, but $3.4 trillion is a pretty sizable market that I know I'd want to go after. So if you don't hablo español or go after that market, you're missing out big time. And who better than my buddy Adam Dennis to talk to us about what he does. Hey, welcome to the show, Adam.
Thanks, Paul. Love the lead-in.
So tell us a little bit about your background before we jump into.
Oh, God, it's a mess. I mean, I come from a lot of different, I've done a lot of different things in my life. I used to do politics. I've run nonprofits. I ran a software company, and this is how I got into automotive. And you know the deal. Once you get in it, you never get out.
Never.
So back in 2000, I launched a SaaS company, and we provided websites, a lead management tool, a number of other things to auto dealers. Sold that in 2005, and then ended up working with an enterprise operation for quite a few years in the auto space. And then in 2019, I bought back the remains of the company I sold from the company I sold it to, and that became SurgeMetrix. So, yeah, I've been in the auto space for 20 plus. Well, actually, it's coming on 25 years.
Adam and I met when we both worked with Dominion.
Yep.
That's where our friendship started. And I was just telling Adam, who knew that a few years later, 9 or so, we'd be sitting here chatting about this kind of stuff, man.
A lot of gray hair and less hair.
Listen, you could do something with the color, okay? Any hair is good hair.
Yeah, my wife says no. She likes the gray.
And I had a beard thing going during COVID, and my wife was not having it. She was just not happy with it. She said people were telling me it looked good just to humor me because they didn't want me to feel bad.
Yeah, well, when you're married, you have an audience of one, so you got to pay attention.
That's it. So we got a couple of guests on the show, starting us off with Russell B. Hill. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Hello, Russell. Nice to see you, man. Robert Allen Carvel, a good friend of the show. Hello, everyone from Atlanta, Georgia. Have been working the Miami market for a couple of years. I had a feeling this guy would be ahead of many others because he's very up on the latest. Russell B. Hill, Spanish is huge. Greg Dudley, hey y'all. And Russell B. Hill says, hello, Roger. Oh, disclaimer. There are some people's comments that don't show up during the live for some reason. It's either a glitch with LinkedIn or a glitch with StreamYard. However, when you ask StreamYard, they tell you it's LinkedIn. When you ask LinkedIn, they tell you it's StreamYard. Kind of like walking into the store asking for a guy you know, and everybody, including that guy, points in a different direction. We know better. So if there's a comment that I'm not responding to or Adam's not responding to, that merely means that we don't see it. And if you have my cell, feel free to text me, or you can message me in LinkedIn Messenger. And if we see it, then we'll be happy to respond. After the show goes off, then all of the comments, or some of them that we didn't see during the live, we'll see afterwards, and we'll certainly respond to those. So I just want to put that out there. Nathan Williams, and that right there makes me wonder why some people have the audacity to call Hispanic people illegal immigrants. All right, but we're not going to get political here. And we have Barry Davis. We had a Hispanic advisor, Victor. He had a huge Hispanic following at our Toyota store. Being bilingual is such a major success. Man, beyond what you can imagine. Okay? Now, me personally, no hablo or entiendo todo, pero entiendo bastante. What do you think? Have a future in linguistics?
Yeah, I would give you points.
Maybe not a full future. All right. Well, it's more than some people know. Steve DiMarzio, Facebook works. Yes. On Facebook, we are dealer vendor match. So you can tune into the show there. Oreo, get off the screen, boy. Oh. The hazards of having a cat in the office. Nathan said, I didn't mean to sound political. Sorry. No, no worries. No worries. I just put that up there because we all have that one friend who gets political when that's not something we really want to do. All right. So, Adam, the Hispanic market's huge. From what I see, and I'm out there every day, every week I'm on a plane going somewhere. Every day I'm walking into a dealership, and I do not see a lot of effort made marketing towards the Hispanic community.
Don't ask me why. I might get political. Yeah. Well, I will address the elephant in the room. I think, yes, you know, a lot of car owners are guys our age, right?
Yeah.
So the majority of white guys between the ages of 40 something, 60 something. And for them, you know, in a lot of cases, they're not part of seeing the massive change that's occurring in the communities around them, right? Drive to and from work. They have their friends and everything else. And I don't think it's always a prejudicial thing. It's just an experience thing, right? Yeah. I've had good experience with some dealers who just said, look, I see the facts and I want to start changing. And when you're working with a dealer like that, it's almost always going to work out well because in their case, they're just saying, I'm open, let's discuss. And what I always do is I draw a parallel, and I've been doing this for years now, is saying, look, if you live in an Irish neighborhood or an Italian neighborhood, you're going to flavor your marketing in a way that reflects that Irish heritage and the Italian heritage because you're crazy not to. It's like you and I were talking earlier about Providence and Buddy Cianci and the large Italian population there. You'd be crazy not, if you're an auto dealer in that area, you'd be crazy not to flavor yourself culturally periodically. And the same thing goes for the Hispanic community. It's not so much, you know, speaking Spanish, it's flavor your marketing in a way that recognizes the culture that's around you. And if you market to the culture, you'll do fine. And it's not rocket science. It's just a lot of people don't see it, so they don't prioritize it. And you know, that plays out in advertising because not, you know, when you look at generally across businesses in the US, they're only spending about 4% of their ad budget on Hispanic advertising. Yet in some areas, they have 30, 40, 50% of the population is Hispanic, right?
So hold on a second. Is that 4% across the board of all dealers or of the ones?
Oh, no, this is businesses in general, which I think would apply to dealers as well from my experience. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't look at it as, okay, you know, we have tooling that we do that tells the size and composition of the Hispanic community at 15, 25, 50 miles around the dealership so they can understand exactly what they're doing down to the zip code with median income and everything else. And we supply that same tooling to Ford Direct, and they do a lot of, you know, they're targeting, calculating based upon that type of data. And where you come from with my brain is I'm a data guy. I'm a dork. All right. I love data. Data helps guide you because it's facts. It helps you make good decisions. But again, still, regardless, a lot of dealers just don't see the impact. They're blind to it. And I think it's going to change, certainly as time goes on. For those dealers who don't change, they're going to find themselves having to change because a competitor is going to change and suddenly start, you know, doing much better than they are, and they're going to have to shift.
Now, the Hispanic population is a growing population. And, you know, people think it's just certain areas, okay? It's just certain states or certain cities. But I'd venture to say it's everywhere, really. And you see this in a different way because you actually have the tooling where you go in and you look and analyze particular areas.
Yeah, I mean, you have states like North Carolina that have had massive increase of Hispanic population. I do want to point something out, though. Barry Davis made a really good comment. He said that customers that only speak Spanish have a guard up because they are afraid they will be taken advantage of. Having a good Hispanic employee that can give them the warm and fuzzies will not only land a special customer, bingo, but word of mouth referrals are sure to follow. Hence why Victor had well over 300 plus customers. Yeah, that is so true. And if you take that same customer that you've just served well, and you get that customer to give you a review in Spanish, then when Hispanic shoppers are shopping, they're going to see that review in Spanish. It's a very, very subtle thing, but that'll say this dealership is a good dealership. So, yeah, Barry, you made a good point there.
I see some of that. I see some because I'm always analyzing reviews also, and I do see some reviews in Spanish. Now, I think it's probably, we have the example of Victor here, but how many dealerships really across the country, when you look at all of them, have a percentage of their workforce that is fluent in Spanish? And do they promote that so that they can attract people from the outside?
Yeah, the numbers, where it gets complicated is we've had dealers when we talk to them, they say, well, I have somebody in my service bay who speaks Spanish. And that you're not going to get very far if the service to the community is an afterthought. And I don't mean that any disrespect to any dealers, but if someone walks in, and again, getting to Barry's point, you've got to create a comfortable environment, right? And Robert says it's good to have processes in Spanish. Yeah, you want to have it set up so that when someone walks in, they're going to be comfortable. Now, the reality is you have a lot more people that are just bilingual now. So they speak Spanish and English. I mean, if you look at since around 2000, the number of births in the U.S. from people of Spanish origin have gone up dramatically and far outstripped new immigrants, right? So that's reflective of what you put here in the when you advertise this session, you were talking about $3.4 trillion in spending power. What that's caused by is the growth of a Hispanic middle class, right? So, and that's happened with every immigrant group that's come to the United States. They get here new, like the Italians, when the Italians arrived. If you go back in history, they were treated horribly, right? Chinese were treated horribly. Irish were treated horribly. But over time, they become a part of the fabric, and they start building a middle class, and then it starts changing. And we're seeing that happen across the country with the growth of a middle class. If you look at that number that you put, that puts the American Hispanic spending power above Canada, for Christ's sake. It makes them the fifth largest economy in the world. Yeah. So there's a lot of money there. And if you look at some stats during COVID, it was home buying by Hispanics in New York that led home buying. So there's money out there, and everybody knows, any dealer that's on this call right now knows that if someone's a home owner, they're a car buyer, right? So to think that, so it's changing. And like I said, I'm a data guy, so I watch a lot of those numbers and say, holy shit, it's, a lot of dealers are missing the boat.
Now, Robert says, good to have a process in Spanish. I send my recaps of my visits in English and Spanish when in the Hispanic markets. That's a good practice. I would never thought of even doing that. Nathan says, or at least learn to speak Spanish yourself. Robert Allen Carvel says, must have a bilingual team /managers /advisors, etc. And that's a good point, because what you don't want is somebody to come in, speak Spanish, have some issue with being able to communicate, and then espera un momentito, and then have to go find the guy that's in the parts department or somewhere in the shop. That's not the way to do it.
That doesn't, I mean, the best comment here today is warm and fuzzy. It doesn't leave a warm and fuzzy, that's for sure.
Now, I'm almost thinking a good practice would be signage, right? Yo hablo español, right at the desk. Or
it's a combination of things. Yeah, a dealer that really wants to embrace things. We have dealers who just advertise, right?
Yeah.
And then we have dealers that really embrace the whole approach. And what they'll do is they'll even put up artwork that's reflective of the community, right?
Yeah.
It's like if anybody here has any people of Mexican origin that buy from them, they probably, or if anybody's of Mexican origin here, what a bimbo is. And it's not some blonde white woman. it's something that for people of Mexican origin, it's sort of a sweet cake. It's a food that they eat. It's sort of a junk food that they eat. So, I mean, if you have those subtle things like, you go into a certain dealership and they have off to the side a little place where you can get some coffee or drink or what have you. So it's a combination of these subtle things as well as the advertising, as well as making people feel welcome. The visual cues can have a real impact.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much to do that, to create a comfort zone. And we've had some dealers go from, being new to really embrace it to such an extent that they're always checking up on any events in the area, becoming parts of those events in the area. We have one dealer right now. What is he doing? There's a Puerto Rican event that's coming up that they are going to be participating in. The same way, the funny thing is the same way as Mom Pop and Apple Pie was done years ago with baseball teams and stuff like that with auto dealers. It's the same formula, guys. It's just a different culture that you're being sensitive to.
And, the other ways they can do this also is social media, for instance, right? I'm the anti-marketer marketing guy. Okay. I believe in the power of organic word of mouth advertising. I believe that 10 of your friends saying I'm a good guy outweighs any amount of money anybody could spend for some generic ad that you're hoping somebody's going to click on. That's my personal feeling. We own a retail store, and I see it on a regular basis. We ask our customers, how did you find us? This lady, she's Southern Jersey somewhere. How'd you find us? On Google. That's funny because we don't spend any money on advertising. But yet the content we create finds people. So if you have Hispanic team members, create content. If you have Hispanic customers, create content with them in Spanish and then share it in social media and different places so that their friends see it, other people that speak Spanish see it. I think that can bring a lot of business to Stores Way.
Yeah, what we've done is, I mean, I'm fortunate because we have a really good team. Not a huge team, but a very creative, very capable team. And what we did was, Nathan's saying that there's a term for that, proactive, straight up. What we have is we have a solution that we put together that using AI that creates Spanish language content that's flavored to the dominant group in an area. Now we'll only do this when, say, someone said earlier that they're from Miami, so that they know that, Cuban Spanish is
Miami market. He's
What's
not
that?
from Miami. He's from Atlanta, but he covers the Miami area, and he sees a lot of Hispanic.
All right, then you know that when you get down to Miami, I mean, the dominant group there is Cuban, like a Cuban origin. So, I mean, the solution that we wrote will write basically all different types of social media posts, can even do ads in a flavored Spanish for the dominant group. If there's not a dominant group, then we go with a universalized Spanish, because the reverse, you can actually have a backfire, because if you just sort of pick a dominant group, you might offend another group. So you gotta balance out your thinking and be really realistic and understanding that no group is monolithic. But the point that I'm saying is, when we work with dealers, we say, look, we can generate 90% of your posts, so you don't have to carry that load all the time. And it just automatically goes up. We have a human curated to make sure everything's cool, and we're not AI freaks. So we've developed the software in a way that is very careful with how AI flavors the presentation. But the point is, that gets to what you were saying, which is that's where you create an opportunity for your Spanish speaking staff to only spend time putting up really quality stuff periodically. They don't have to do it every day, because everybody's under pressure to get their work done. But then what they do is it's kind of like we have the cake, they have the icing, if that makes sense. And
mixed content.
Yeah, mixed content. And we always, so we're doing the thing to keep the algorithm happy. You're feeding the algorithm. And then they're doing the thing to give the personality that, I'm sorry, no ad firm, marketing firm can really capture the personality of a dealership or an individual at that dealership. You want to get them doing it. Because again, in the end, it's when the person walks in the door, they're going to be looking for Paul or Adam. They're not going to, and you want to capture that sense of connectiveness. So yeah, you're right. I mean, a big part of it is how you put your face forward in being welcoming.
Everybody has a tribe. Your
Yep.
employees have tribes, your customers have tribes, and the goal is always to cater to your customers or your team members and leverage those tribes that they have, right? There's
Yep.
an automatic trust factor. And with the Hispanic community, I'd venture to say it's probably even stronger because they're more of a tight-knit community from what I've seen.
Yeah, let me grab that for a second. So study after study after study has shown that the loyalty of an Hispanic buyer is higher than an average buyer. And I forgot who said it earlier when he was talking about the warm and fuzzies, but that's true. What happens is there, and again, this is kind of dancing along the edge of politics, but it's still a relevant point, is there have been court cases after court cases that have been done where the Hispanic community has been ripped off with loans that don't justify the interest rate. And when you take into account a number of factors in the law, there's a term in the law, I won't get into it, but what it basically says, all things considered, they're a good investment. There's a dealer group out west, Tricolor, that I admire. A guy who runs it, Daniel Chu. He marks heavily to the Hispanic community. I mean, that's largely the group he goes after, and he's done a really good job proving that it is a good group to sell to, right? And so the thing is, when you really break it down, if you treat the buyers well, you're going to have a good outcome. And some buyers walk in based upon previous experience that they've had, because, you know, we tend to have a little bit of politics that talks negatively about that community, and that reverberates through the community. So when you have a dealership that treats the community really well, it makes a difference. We have a dealership, and I think when I was on this before, I said it to you, is this dealership still amazes me. The guy who runs it is a guy who's like, he is so Southern, it's ridiculous. Good old boy, right? But he's marketed the Hispanic community with us for a while, and he's done such a good job that he'll have people driving 2 hours to buy from him.
I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah. And it's because he's gotten such a reputation and getting to that point that the loyalty of the community and the fact that he gets a lot of referrals too. He has a good referral program. And so he doesn't, at this point, I'm a little worried we might lose him as a customer because he doesn't need to advertise as much because he's done such a good job. You know, he's done such a fabulous job of building such a great reputation. But, you know, it just takes a sense of commitment and a good attitude.
58% of people out there will spend more money and drive further distance for an experience. So it stands to reason that if you cater to this market that many others are not, then you're going to set yourself apart from everybody. Now you're pointed to, I'm thinking there's
Nathan, I love you, man. I don't know you, but you're making good comments. This is it right here.
It's universal, or at least it should be, that if you treat people well, no matter their background, they will have a aforementioned warm and fuzzies. What a concept, man. You have people come back to you because you treat them like human beings.
Yeah.
Who came up with this?
It's the same thing you advise dealers when you walk in and talk to them, Paul. Treat people well and they'll come back, right?
Yeah. Robert Allen Carvel says, learn to order my Cuban coffee very quickly.
Yeah, you know, it's funny is Paul, I have to tell you a little story, like off subject right now. So, you know that I married into a Caribbean family, right? And what nobody on this call knows is I actually live out of the country now. I live in Antigua in the West Indies. I will tell you, there's a reason why I was joking that I was going to bring my rum tonight. Is right now it's Carnival. So if anybody doesn't know what Carnival is, just talk about a big party that goes on for days and days and days.
Oh yeah.
And after I'm done here tonight, I got to immediately go catch a nap because at 2 a.m. I'm supposed to go to Juve, which is It's basically dance up, where you walk in the street and you're dancing all night until like 9 a.m. So,
Nobody feels sorry for you, man.
but
Nobody.
what I'm pointing out about is that I was a white guy born in Rhode Island, didn't know anything about Caribbean culture, and it's just by learning and opening and understanding cultures have different ways of expressing themselves, and you leave yourself open to, like what Nathan was saying. You learn how to treat people right and understand what's right to them. It was like when I arrived here in Antigua, I would say hello to people. My wife would like whack me in the head. It's like, idiot. It's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, right? So if you understand them, where they're coming from culturally, Robert, if you understand where people are coming from culturally, and as I learned to communicate, it makes a huge difference. Those little subtle things. She's like, whenever you walk into somewhere, smile, and if it's the morning, you say good morning, and you get treated very differently because it shows you understand the culture. Same thing with Hispanic culture, same thing with Italian. It does not matter. Getting to that point that Nathan made, it's universal. Treat people well, treat them in a way that you show you understand who they are. It works.
And the fact that actually leveraging a company like yours or some of the software that you have to approach that market in their preferred style, that's huge. Because if anybody has friends that are overseas, and you want to be cute and you can communicate with them in their language using Google Translate, well, what you quickly learn is what you learned when your wife smacked you upside the head, that there's no direct translation sometimes.
Yep.
When you use something like Google Translate, how the sentence structure is not necessarily the same. So it almost comes across as insincere and goofy rather than what you're trying to achieve. You're thinking you're doing something right. And how many dealers out there aren't doing that using Google Translate?
Yeah,
right?
and it's funny. It's funny. We worked with a dealer who didn't have any Spanish-speaking staff when he started. And again, this guy was really open, and what we worked with him about was just putting together some ads. And he was like, "Oh, what do I do?" It's like, I don't know. I said, honestly, just put in it that you're looking for, when you're hiring the next salesperson, say Spanish speak, ability to speak Spanish preferred, or a plus, however you put it, and that way you'll start attracting more people. And then you take that same ad, have it translated, and then put it in some local, say, Hispanic newspapers, what have you, but also put it out in Indeed. You don't have to stay away from Indeed because a lot of people are bilingual, and it's not rocket science. And again, he now has 3 people on his staff, and he does really, really well. So if you're starting at 0, it's okay. It's just, do the obvious thing, which is when you're hiring that next salesperson, look for someone who speaks Spanish, right?
I mean, everybody starts somewhere. And I think there are a lot of people would be very surprised if you went in and you did a search for, okay, so what percentage of the population is Hispanic, and what's the opportunity, right? There's greater opportunity than most people are even aware of. There's that old thing that you don't know what you don't know. If you're not part of that community, unless you leverage the tooling or somebody that is familiar with that, how will you know, right? I bet there's some dealers that are very surprised when you come back to them with data that shows what the opportunities are.
Yeah. Hey, I want to make a little point. So I'm not going to say the dealership's name out in Ohio that you're visiting.
Yeah.
But, this is the case of like data is where data is important. So I looked them up quickly with our tooling. It's a tool called Recon.
Yeah.
And 5% of their population around the dealership is Hispanic, right?
Okay.
Out to 50 miles. But that population is 166,000. None of their major competitors from what our tooling sees, and what we do is we take a look at their website and see for if there's any Spanish language on the website. So we quickly crawl the site to see.
Yeah.
None of the major competitors have Spanish language on their website. So that's a perfect example of a dealer who's sitting there in a situation where he's got a fairly large population to begin with. The customer I mentioned earlier that's done really well in his region, he only has 30,000.
Wow, this is five times.
Yeah, but he has people drive for 2 hours because he treats them so well, and the reputation is going on in the community. So I see that so many times, Paul, it's ridiculous. I mean, we'll talk to a dealer and the dealer's trying to figure out what they're going to do. And then we run the numbers and it's like 5%, 10%, 15, 20%. They'll have these numbers and they're still scratching their heads trying to decide what to do. And that's a huge mistake because, you know, the dealer that steps out there and actually starts marketing and building that reputation and really embracing the community, they're going to outstrip their competitors over time. And the country's changing. I mean, year over year, if you look at year over year spending power increase, it's about 14% for the Hispanic community. Figure out that right now when they're at $3.2 to $3.4 trillion. Where will they be in another 10 years? Right?
Sure.
Most rapid population growth in the community in the United States is from the Hispanic community. So you're seeing radical change in the U.S.
Let's not forget, you also have Telemundo and Univision on television in the U.S.
Yep.
Now, what you just mentioned there, what you just shared, that's huge, right? Because how long did that really take you?
I looked it up while you were talking.
Right. That's my point. So here's opportunity, okay? The business has changed somewhat over the last 4 years. We're getting back to where we actually have to do the work to sell the car. And I talk to dealers. I hear double-digit numbers. Traffic is down. It's more competitive. But here, in the matter of a few minutes, you uncovered 160. What'd you say? 166,000.
Yep.
166,000 people. Now, does it break it down by specific age or just all people in that demographic?
Yeah, no, it breaks it down all people by zip code. So I can give you a zip code breakdown, and I'm just quickly checking. That's at 50. If I go out to 60 miles, and the reason I do that is because, you know, depending on the area, that 60 miles is not a difference. 60 miles is 186,000. It's not that big of a bump, but
still a lot of people.
Yeah, it's still a lot of people, and you know, if nobody else is really targeting that community, now that particular area, 49% of the community is at the 60-mile mark. Is 49% is of Puerto Rican origin, and 29% are of Mexican origin.
So you can target it by zip code.
Yep.
So you can communicate to that specific area with a targeted message in their preferred language, in their preferred style.
Well, within limits, because certainly, you know, if you're doing it on, say you're advertising through Facebook, you're not going to be able to shift and subtly shift it to Puerto Rico, a variation of Puerto Rican dialect versus Mexican dialect. But what you can do is drop in terms periodically, like with Mexicans, people of Mexican origin, you know, a term they use for truck in sort of everyday language is troca, right? As opposed to camion. So, you know, if you throw in a term like that here or there, and there's a similar different term for people of Puerto Rican origin, then what that shows is that you understand a little bit of the day-to-day variations. You don't have to be heavy-handed about it at all.
Right.
But just learning those little things can make a difference, because it's the small things that count when you're trying to connect to people. It's not just the big stuff, because it's the small stuff that says, I understand you.
Right, right. What are some of the misconceptions that store or dealership may have around the Hispanic market?
That everybody is a subprime buyer.
Okay.
That their credit worthiness is low. You know, I think the guy I mentioned that I admire, Daniel Chu from Tricolor, you know, one of the things that I think he understands, and this is a lot of times the case for new arrivals, is that when a vehicle is purchased, it's not one person that's responsible for it. You know, I might sign for the vehicle, but the family makes sure that vehicle is going to be paid for, right? because again, getting to the point that you made earlier, the concept of family is pretty tight. Yeah. So as a consequence, I think those perspectives are a bit off. I think another thing that's a bit off is thinking that most Hispanics are yard workers and stuff like that. I mean, no, you go to certainly you go to a place like Miami. A lot of those major skyscrapers are owned by people of Cuban origin, right? You have a large Venezuelan population that is quite comfortable financially. So, I mean, you look around the country and, like I said, with the growing middle class, if you look at sort of college education is going up, which is always an indication, again, of matriculation within the middle class of education levels. So I think, while the case still stands that you're going to have a large portion of people that are going to be on the lower end, you have a growing portion that's in the middle. And as you think in terms of a car dealer of, how you position yourselves, I can tell you if you're a Toyota dealer, if you're a Ford dealer, if you're a Chevy dealer, you'd be crazy not to be advertising. Toyota still scores the top when it comes year over year in terms of reputation with Hispanic car buyers. Yeah, Nathan, spot on, man. Yeah, you can't judge people by the cover. You can't just assume. So those are some of the misconceptions.
The income levels are increasing at a more rapid rate also, I think the data points.
Yeah. Yep. Again, as I put it, the simplest explanation is the rapid growth of a middle class, which we've seen with every other minority group. I mean, part of my heritage is Irish. And if you went in, there's a Museum of Industry in Baltimore, right? And at early 1900s, if you look at the ads they have for jobs, at that time the ads would say no Irish nor, and I'm not going to say the word because it's offensive for Black people, need apply, right? But you come to this day and age, Irish people are just Irish people, people of Irish heritage, just American, right? So, again, we're in the midst of watching a change that's occurring and it's happening in front of our eyes. And it's the constant cultural mix of America that just continues to grow and become richer and richer.
I love Nathan's comment.
Yep.
Because I've seen it play out so many times. All right. I worked for an old Hungarian guy named Geza Bodner. He was a Mercedes and Saab dealer. And I remember when I first met him, he said in his broken English, he said, "This country lined with money. Problem is, most people not bend down to pick up."
That's brilliant.
I remember it like it was yesterday. Okay, here's a guy that wasn't very proficient in the language. He had a repair shop that back in the day when Mercedes was looking to establish dealerships, they approached him. He was smart enough, and he had his wife was also smart enough for them to grasp that opportunity, and he grew it into quite a nice enterprise. It employed a lot of people. Okay. Yep. I remember at that store, talk about judging a book by the cover. There was this guy, Mike, that walked in. Mike was wearing two different shoes. You heard that thing of who ties your shoes in the morning? Well, Mike didn't realize he had two different shoes on. So they had an up system in the showroom, and Mike came in to buy a Mercedes. And Alex was up. And Alex was MNFing up and down because it was his up. But Alex said, "I'll be damned if I'm going to blow you up because I don't know when the next one's coming through the door." And all the other salesmen were laughing at him because here he's stuck with this clown, they're thinking, right? The guy's got two different shoes on. Well, Alex goes through all of the steps, no different than you going through all of the steps to establish and develop a Hispanic market. And then when the rubber meets the road, treating them with respect and welcome them in when they come in. Alex ended up selling Mike a car. And all the other people were like blown away. But the story doesn't end there because both of Mike's kids came in and also bought brand new Mercedes from
Yeah.
Alex. So Alex had the last laugh, but it's a good parallel story because we have inherent biases. We may not even be aware that we have them. But if we learn to recognize our opportunities and work to develop those, I mean, the sky's the limit here. What's Nathan saying now?
Oh,
I'll have
Nathan wants to go to
remember that
Baltimore.
next time I visit Baltimore, which I hope to do again soon.
Yeah, Nathan, it's Museum of Industry. Yeah, it's a nice place.
No, we just went through there. Had we had more time, we would have been able to do that. But I'll certainly make note of that because I'm going to be going back again. So, what other types of things should dealers be looking at?
Well, I think when if a dealer is going to go down the route of marketing to the local Hispanic community, if you hire somebody who speaks Spanish, don't treat them as somehow different than your regular salespeople.
Yeah,
it's just another part of your sales strategy. So you integrate them in with your sales team. They're part of your team, no matter, fine, great. So no different treatment, because what that would communicate the wrong message that potentially that sales rep would carry then to the community. I think looking at, trying to understand the composition of your community. So if you're going to start marketing, one of the things to look at is, the different organizations and groups in the community that have, in the broader community, that have connections to the Hispanic community. It's looking around. And if you're sponsoring a baseball team, you might want to see, is there a local football team that might be popular with a local Hispanic community that you could sponsor too, right? So
okay.
it's not just the act of, oh, I'm going to advertise, so it's just a matter of spending money. I think it's a matter of really just coming to understand the different layers to the community around you, whether it's Hispanic or something else, and then shaping your marketing to reflect that, right? Yeah, it's really not rocket science. Trying to think if there's anything else and one of the other things you might look at is your transactional docs. And this gets to risk mitigation because, I have a good friend of mine, Tom Klein, what's that?
Of ours. I love Tom.
Yeah, your friend too, that does mitigation work. And, he and I have talked about this is, it's smart that if you're going to start selling to a community in a different language, is make sure you get your transactional docs translated. Smart move, right? Because then you're not increasing risk by selling a car to somebody who only speaks Spanish. And the reality is the number of people that only speak Spanish is becoming less and less of a percentage of those who are bilingual, right? But still, the point goes that you want to be sensitive to that because you don't want to sort of increase your risk with something going wrong. So, yeah, I guess that works pretty much.
Well, even the fact that they're bilingual and less solely speaking Spanish, a lot of times these communities would prefer to communicate in their own language. I mean, I see it out and about every day.
Yeah.
And if you're able to engage them on that level, I mean, that's huge. So I guess a good place to start, and the first thing one needs to remember is that any marketing, whether it's to an English-speaking audience or a Hispanic market or any market, it is not like flipping a switch, right? No. It is a concerted effort that you need to do some homework on. You need to have your plan. Okay, what am I looking to achieve? What is the opportunity? So, I mean, you blew me away with that 166,000 people in the Hispanic community around the dealership where I'm going to be very soon. Okay, that is something that I doubt they even have any idea of. Right? No idea whatsoever. So knowing, okay, so my opportunity is 166,000 people. Okay, I don't know what percentage of those are 18 and above or driving, but nonetheless, it's going to be a good number.
Yeah, it's an untapped market.
It's an untapped market. So if I start with that, And I know based on the data that you just revealed, nobody around them is really touching that. Then that's an exclusive market that I could develop for myself if I'm a store owner or if I run a store.
Yeah, let me grab something, Paul, that Nathan just said. He said, marketing is more work than most people realize. And it's one thing to recognize we have a bias, but another to admit it. Those are both really good points. I mean, one of the problems that we have with some dealers is they think I can start advertising and next week I'll get a bunch of buyers who are going to come. No,
Nope.
man. I mean, you got to build your reputation, right? And that takes time. That takes the messaging you put on your website, the messaging you put in any of your social media posts. It's the influence of getting people to give you Spanish language reviews. It's the constant message that you're putting out there saying, hey, we're here to buy from us. And then the corresponding good experiences that you create when you sell well to customers. It's the referral policy that you have, which, you know, again, if you have a population with a high loyalty rating, then what you want to do is have a good referral program because they're going to refer family. They're going to refer friends. But that takes time, measured not in, you know, months and years. So if you're going to say that, it's just you're committing to a way of doing business. And not a lot of dealers are willing to do that. They're going to do the same, and I'll just put it this way, the same shit they've done year after year after year and constantly complain that they're not making progress. Yet right in front of them is an opportunity that if they did a variation of the same shit, but just included that group, good, right? Things will work out over time.
We, owning a retail business, we've turned something small into a global entity. We ship product all over the world, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, South America, Canada, all over the US. Okay, we spend this much money on marketing. Yet we have a fall retreat that we do every year at a posh resort in Connecticut on the seashore, and we've got people coming in, flying in to buy something from California, Nebraska, Iowa, Georgia, a few from Florida, not to mention all the ones that are driving hours upon hours to converge upon our annual fall retreat to be part of a community and to buy product. We ask people all the time, hey, how did you find out about us? And they tell us Google, which is funny because we don't spend any money marketing on Google. Right? It took us, I would say, when COVID hit is when we went online. And it took us a solid 3 years to develop a clientele that would get on an airplane to come to fly across the country to spend the weekend to come buy yarn from us. Okay. I ask dealers all the time, hey, how's your tire business? Oh, we can't compete with the tire retailers down the street, or people won't drive across town to come buy tires from us. That they need, and spend a fraction of what some of these people will spend to get on airplanes to come buy stuff from us, right?
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, you made a really good comment here, and it's critical, which is community building takes time.
Yes.
But it's worth its weight in gold once you build it, right? And once you build it and you attend it and you cultivate it, it is worth its weight in gold. But it takes time. So those dealers that expect they're going to get immediate response, sorry, you know, we'll tell them we can't help you because you're not gonna like the outcome, right? But if you work and you look like what Nathan was saying, yeah, if you have a limited budget, it's a combination of figuring out how much you can afford within your budget, and then how can you be creative to build your reputation, right? And there are things that don't cost money. I mean, it's like, you know, we had a dealer that would, you know, whenever there's an event, you know, for the community, they make sure they're represented at that event, and that doesn't cost them a ton of money to do. But what it does is they're seen and no other dealers are there. So as a consequence, they're the dealer that gets talked about.
This is stuff that you can do searches for on Google, right? To uncover some of these opportunities.
Oh yeah.
Where you can get involved with organizations. Okay. You can set Google alerts for specific terms or specific
Yep.
things that you can be alerted. Okay, yesterday we were at an art show in town, and the young man who was the artist or is the artist, my friend went to Cuba, discovered this person, and some behind the scenes work. He's now got a artist in residency thing going, where he's doing art programs with youth in the area. He's got his work displayed in the gallery. Okay, dealers can very simply, utilizing companies like yours, to do. You found in minutes what the opportunity is. I mean, that's not rocket science. They don't have to do all the heavy lifting.
No, they don't.
Once you know
No,
what
they
your
don't.
opportunity is, now you can
Yeah.
formulate your plan to create that content through the Google reviews in Spanish. Make sure you get a bunch of those if you know what your opportunity is, using the keywords that are important to those folks, right? That they're going to search for.
And there's another side of it too, is that, the simple truth is that photos, like if you look at Google and Google Business Profile, photos are a big part of the algorithm that says I'm alive, I'm doing relevant stuff, blah, blah, blah. And it's not hard for a dealer, to train his staff or her staff to take photos when they make a sale or do a video, right? So imagine the power of a video with a salesperson who just sold a vehicle to someone who speaks Spanish, and they're talking about it in Spanish or a mix of Spanish and English. Boom. You've just done something that didn't cost a dime. It's very creative. It's very simple. And that's the icing on the cake that I was talking about. It's not rocket science. It's having a commitment over time to create a result that'll benefit you and your dealership quite well.
And the beauty of it is all of your competitors are not going after that market. Right? A lot of dealers want instant gratification when grassroots work, and advertising still works at little to no cost.
Yep.
It doesn't have to break the bank. But the best thing is, you talk to anybody and you say, hey, when's the best time to have a conversation with somebody about a car? Well, when they're not in the market or before they're in the market. If you can catch them before they're in the market, now there's no, and you give them such a good experience, there's no competition. They're not going to somebody else. And this dealer's got 166,000 people opportunity that nobody's going after. So, all right, so now we're getting the customers in via social media, via Google, via community involvement. What do we do with the website?
It depends on who the vendor is. I mean, that's part of the challenge. But the simplest thing to do is to provide a Spanish language translation of the site, right? There are a number of different variations of how you can do that. You can have a custom translation, which will get to something that's a little bit more flavored to the community around you, which to me is the ideal thing. You don't want to get so far away from, English and Spanish, because you don't want to create sort of this false appearance to, especially if someone's bilingual, that you're BSing those who speak Spanish. So you got to be careful how you do that. You got to present yourself well. But what you can do is between the English and Spanish, you can sort of vary some of the imagery a little bit, some of the other things that would give an indication that you show a cultural flavor. And then what you can do is you can start to do a section of your website that speaks to the community in Spanish about different things, the same stuff that you talk about to, your English speaking customers, but, do it in Spanish instead. So, where the difficulty comes in with where we've had some difficulty, because we produce, like I said, a lot of content using an AI solution that we have.
Yeah.
And some, and I won't say vendors who it is, because that's really not right. But, when you send over the material, what comes out the other end isn't always preferable.
Yeah.
So you have to go back and say, hey, can you please correct this? And because you, again, getting to the point that someone else made or didn't say exactly, but getting to it, which is authenticity is important. You want to appear, whatever you do looks authentic and legitimate. I do want to say here is like Eric talking about a lot of dealers want the instant gratification. Yeah, that's true. But the grassroots outreach is a part of what we advise dealers to do. And you can do some of that effectively a bit with your website, talking about certain things. Like say, well, an obvious one. You're approaching May, you might want to put something up about Cinco de Mayo if you have a reasonably large Mexican population in your area. People of Mexican origin, because that's a no-brainer. I mean, that's like at this point it's almost like St. Patty's Day. Right. There are more people that celebrate St. Patty's Day who aren't Irish, right? Same principle with Cinco de Mayo. So you can do some things too, again, that connect locally.
So when we're talking about the website, we're not necessarily thinking you click on show me this website in Spanish and everything flips like a billboard that turns where everything's in Spanish. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about.
You can do that. I mean, there are dealers that do that, and that's not wrong from my point of view. But just like you want to flavor your messaging a little bit depending upon your community, it's like there are dealers that have, put up promos, that speak to different levels of the society, right? You're going to have how you talk to your guys who buy the $80,000 vehicle might be a little bit different than how you market to the guy who buys the $30,000 vehicle. Well, there's still some flavoring that you can do between the different cultures that you might be marketing to. I mean, we have this one dealer that we work with. I mean, they have Portuguese because they're in an area with a high concentration of Brazilian Portuguese. So we help them put together content for that community. Just looking at Greg Dudley, I just noticed something popped up. I want to take a look at what he posted. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm going to check that out. Thanks, Greg. I imagine what it's saying, I'll just guess, is it's about connecting with your community.
So I think so. You don't necessarily need to go the full route of give me this website in Spanish. If you created a page or with a couple of sub pages that spoke to specifically what your involvement is with the community sincerely and show them that you're actually doing something, I think that goes a long way.
I mean, you can basically, the simplest is a landing page, right? And then a Spanish language version of inventory is ideal, right? You don't change anything that's an IP protected name, like, the name of a car. Right. But, having the language there, it makes a difference.
Eric says, totally agree. Everyone's so hung up on buying space online and forget their community in their own backyard. I'm Portuguese and we target that market strongly now. But previously, I worked for a dealer with a strong backyard of strictly Portuguese and Spanish, never targeted in any form. I mean, that's just crazy.
I'm just curious, so I got to find out. Hey, Eric, where are you from? Because I grew up in a part of New England that had a huge Portuguese population, and I still know some Portuguese swear words. That was mostly what I learned at the time. But it's curious he's from New England at all. But
yeah, he's up in Massachusetts. We had dinner the other night.
All right. Yeah. I grew up in that area. I know what you're talking about.
Wow, can you believe it's an hour? It's come and gone. What the hell happened at the time? Well, Eric,
man, I love talking to you. We always have fun. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing this information, man. This is huge. He says, grew up in Fall River, Mass.
Hey, Eric, I'm from, and I'll say it properly in the local way you say it. I'm from Tiverton, Rhode Island. Yeah, and that's also known, if you say it, in New Bedford.
You've shared a lot of stuff here. Eye-opening. A link to your website, or how did they get a hold of you, Adam?
SurgeMetrix.com. So that's Surge, SURGE, Metrix, METRIX.com. And the metrics is playing on the term that, we're data geeks, and that's originally how we got into this, because we were looking at the data and we're like, oh my God, this is such an ignored community. So yeah, just reach me that way. And if anybody here is a dealer, and if you want to know the concentration of the Hispanic community around your dealership, just reach out to me. You can get me also at adam.dennis@surgemetrix.com. So yeah, reach out. I'll give you a rundown and then we can talk.
$3.4 trillion is the market. All it takes is a simple phone call with Adam here to find out how big a piece of that pie could be yours. Right? I'd say pick up the phone, give him a call. If you don't want the money, just, hey, thanks for the info. It's great. I appreciate it. But no, all kidding aside, people are talking about traffic being down. People are talking about ways to increase traffic. Here's a market segment that's huge that most people aren't even touching.
Exactly.
So what are you going to do? You're going to just let it slip through your hands? I don't think so. Adam, thanks, man. To those that watch it weekly, thank you. To those that watch it on the replay, thank you. I hope you have a safe and successful next week. And we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Stay tuned there.
Take care. Thanks, guys. All right.